everybody. I guess
Hello.
it's me. My name is Gabe Howard, and I am here with the super cool, very awesome, badass Camera, introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you. I'm Camera. I am the digital media producer here at The Mighty, and I help run some of our events, including the fantastic Gabe Howard's Ask a Bipolar Advocate Live. We're very excited to have you here today. Please ask us your questions that you have about mental health, about bipolar, about anxiety and depression, and Gabe will take it away with his expertise, and I will pick up each question with care and find which ones need to be heard.
Oh, Camera, I love working with you. You are super, super awesome. But that's it. Just put them in the comments. Shorter questions work better because we can't get the long ones on the screen, etc. Just the general question absolutely works. That's about the word count. Don't worry about all the details. I can generally figure out what people mean. Now, you might be thinking at this point, okay, dude, why are we going to ask you questions? Like, who are you? So I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Gabe Howard, and I live with bipolar and anxiety disorders. And I also wrote the book, I know, Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations, which is available on Amazon, or you can get a signed copy with lots of cool swag over at GabeHoward.com. It's a very, very cool book. And I wrote it about my life with bipolar and anxiety disorder, being a mental health advocate. I'm very fond of saying that there's something in there that will make everybody very, very happy, and there's something in there that will piss everybody off. And I think that that's good because it's just it's a plethora of information from many different angles and many different viewpoints. And I hope that is what I can put into the world. And that's what I want to do here today with Ask Us Anything. Literally, ask me anything about depression, bipolar disorder, mental health advocacy, mental illness, and I will answer as many as I can. Now, I am not a doctor, so if I don't know the answer or it's a question that is above my pay grade, for lack of a better word, I will pass on the question. Also, that might be a reason that Camera moderates it out. So if she doesn't pick your question, I promise it's not personal. There are time constraints, and I'm not qualified to answer every question, and Camera knows that. So often she skips those. All right. I'm also the host of Inside Mental Health. It's a very cool podcast. It's absolutely free. It's Inside Mental Health, a Psych Central podcast, and it is available on your favorite podcast player, put out by Healthline Media. They own such cool sites as healthline.com, owned by a giant company that owns such sites as tvguide.com. So it's really cool. It's really high end, and I'm really proud to be part of that. It's a really cool show. Camera, are you still hanging around? I think I'm alone now. Camera doesn't seem to be around. Hey, you have the hat for it. Only I know that because I'm young enough to have seen Tiffany in the video in like 1987.
I've seen Tiffany in the video. I know. I think we're alone now. And I might have not seen it when it aired, but I do know that song and I do know the video. I would get that on trivia.
Who was the original singer of I Think We're Alone Now? What band?
Oh no. Oh no, my oldies are on.
See, it's the Beatles.
Really? I did not know that.
And here's the thing. I'm not even sure that they're the originals. I just know that they did in fact perform it. So there might be like a 90-year-old that's like, that guy doesn't realize that it was done by Patti Bell and the LeBlancs.
I'm sure there was someone before the Beatles. We'll find that out. But in the meantime, would you like to answer a question, Gabe?
Yes. The purpose at hand. Very, very flight of ideas. Camera, thanks for keeping us on task.
No, I would love to discuss the Beatles and the oldies music and what songs originated where. That should be our next live. I think that should be a very good one.
Tell me when and where.
But you've heard it here. Ask us some questions. We've got a few coming in, but feel free to ask us any questions in the comments and we'll get to a few. The first question that I'm going to bring up is a question we get a lot, but I feel like, Gabe, we can answer more on the bipolar side. So Karen is asking, why is bipolar often misdiagnosed as borderline personality disorder or vice versa? Maybe you can kind of talk about your diagnosis process or kind of just how things can get misdiagnosed.
So, Karen, thank you so much for this question. The first thing, the biggest reason why, sincerely, the number one reason is because a mental health diagnosis is messy. It's just messy. There's no definitive blood test. They can't, they can't do like COVID and take the thing and stick it in your nose and swab it around, and 24 hours later, they can't do blood work. They can't just no saliva test, right? It's self-reporting, and this allows things to become jumbled. The best way that I can put it is oftentimes also people with bipolar disorder get diagnosed with just depression, and you can sort of see how that happens. People with bipolar disorder tend not to go to the doctors when they're manic. We feel great when we're manic. That's not the time we seek help, but we do seek help during depression or when we're suicidal. And that's also tends to be what people notice. So if we end up in a hospital or an emergency room or in front of a general practitioner or a psychiatrist, and of course, all we're talking about is the symptoms of depression, it's going to tick off a lot of boxes, and boom, you have a diagnosis of depression. Then, of course, when mania kicks in later, or now you're being seen, you're being told what to look out for, other people have become educated, then people start noticing these other symptoms, and they can fill it out more. So that is the biggest answer to that question, because the self-reporting isn't consistent, because we don't know what to report, because we don't have good mental health education in this country. Here's a little sidebar to this that I would like to point out. The reality is medicine is not perfect. There are many people who go to the doctor and they get a physical or they get checked out and they get one diagnosis, and then because they're not responding to treatment, because they look a little further, because other symptoms start cropping up, it goes from something serious to something not as serious, or of course vice versa. There's just absolutely no way in medicine to be 100% the second that you walk in the door. It's very, very frustrating in mental health, of course, but it's also very, very frustrating in physical health. And my joke in all of this is I'm fairly certain this is why they call it practicing medicine instead of performing medicine. So I hope that helps answer that question. Camera, are you ready for the next one?
Yes, I really like the next one. It's a deep question that I think is really good. And also, I'm really happy that this person asked this question. I think it shows that they want to take care of themselves and kind of find the right tools. So Sarah is stating that they had a psychotic manic episode recently and was wondering what's the best way to take care and recover.
So the best way is to take all the time that you need. There's a saying that I have that I tell a lot of people is the best way to do anything when it comes to mental health is the way that works. And it's the way that works for you. We have this tendency to look around and see what other people are doing. And I completely understand it. I did it too, and I will do it again. But the reality is everybody heals at their own rate. My wife recently had surgery, and the doctor said, you'll be up and around in 4 to 6 weeks. You'll be all healed. You can go swimming, no problem. And this matters because we have a vacation planned that is 8 weeks out. And she goes in at 4 weeks, and the doctor's like, I still need these bandages. You're not quite ready. I still need you to wear the binder. And then you come back in a couple of weeks and we'll take a look. And the doctor's like, well, I need you to do this for another 2 weeks, which of course will hit right in our vacation. And she's like, no, wait a minute. I want to lay by the pool. And he's like, I don't know. And the first words out of my wife's mouth are, you said 4 weeks. And he said, well, I said the average is 4 to 6 weeks, but your body had different plans. Now, I think it's going to be okay for my wife. It looks like it's all healed up. We leave on Monday. She's got an appointment on Friday. So fingers crossed for my wife. But the best way is to give yourself that time and to give yourself permission to take that time and to take what you need and to do what care that you need with an eye to the future. Sometimes you need a little more sleep. Sometimes you can only get one thing done instead of 20 things done. Sometimes you can't make it out of the house. Just keep trying to do more tomorrow than you did today, and just do as much as you can. And as you feel better, take on more, but don't overreach, and then you will get there. If you notice yourself not getting better, or you notice that your tomorrow is worse than today, that's when you need to reach out to your doctor and let them know that you might need a little help. You might need a new coping skill or a medication adjustment or something. Please just take care of yourself and move forward in the best way that you know how, keeping in mind that the biggest goal is to do a little more tomorrow than you did today. Camera!
That's lovely.
I love
That
it when you
sounds
pop back on the screen, like, camera.
I'm here. It is ready for the next question. We have a lot of good ones coming in. Very
Awesome.
excited. So yeah, thank you, Sarah, for yours. And so Nana wants to know, or Nana, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That's cool. How do you feel the difference between, I guess, the downtime from a bipolar episode versus depression? Kind of the difference there.
So they're all kind of part and parcel for me. I struggle personally trying to figure out what is what. Am I depressed? Am I chronically depressed? Am I, medically depressed? Am I bipolar depressed? Am I just sad? Right? I still have a range of emotions. Intensity really, really matters. Severe major depression feels a lot more intense than melancholy or sadness or just being down in the dumps. It's hard to figure out what goes where and what is what. What I try to look for is, am I having a symptom? That seems to work easier for me than trying to label the symptom. I just look at, am I having a symptom and what does it look like? And then try to figure out what that symptom is impacting. Am I down in the dumps, or am I experiencing depression, but I still go to work? I still cook dinner for my wife. I still walk the dog. Okay, that's. I'm not saying ignore that depression, but that would obviously be different than if I could not get out of bed. I try to spend my time figuring out how to get out of it than I do trying to figure out what it is. Now, that's not always so easy because I want to know. I'm kind of a control freak when it comes to my own mind. But I do find that focusing on moving forward helps me because sincerely, I can't separate them all out. I'm one of the big questions in bipolar discussion groups is, where does bipolar begin and you end, and vice versa? And sincerely, I don't know that question is answerable, but it's a great philosophical debate amongst a whole bunch of people living with bipolar disorder. Thank you so much for that question, and I'm sorry I didn't have a more conclusive answer.
Not every question can have the full answer. Some of them are unknown and still processing. So it's always good that we learn a little bit. Yeah, we have a question. A question about dissociation from Alexis. Alexis wants to know, how is dissociation handled correctly? I don't know any good coping skills. And also asking, or how do you recover from one of those episodes? Now, I'm not sure if dissociation can be sometimes a symptom of bipolar, or if you've experienced something similar, Gabe, that maybe you can relate back to or kind of give your best advice on how to handle.
So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The best way to handle anything as it comes to mental health is what's working for you. Now, you mentioned that you don't know any good coping skills, and here's kind of the bummer. I'm not certain that I know any good coping skills either. I know coping skills for I've had psychotic episodes. I've lost time. I've had delusions, etc. And the coping skills that I have used for that, and you have to decide if they will work for you. So I'm just simply sharing a similar experience. I'm absolutely unequivocally not saying that these are tried and true medical techniques. But what I always tried to focus on that helped me is focusing forward. What can I do to put distance in between where I am now and where I was? And two, really trying to evaluate what is real and what is not. One of the biggest delusions that I had were that demons were following me around and trying to hurt me. Now, this felt extraordinarily real in the moment. I sincerely thought they were trying to hurt me. And then I thought that they were trying to hurt my loved ones. And it felt very, very real as I got, care, medication in this case, and I started to put some distance in it. I started thinking, okay, well, what would a demon look like? How would a demon hurt me? Are demons real? And why did I believe this? Was it based on a feeling? And in my case, it was a delusion. So yes, what did that feeling feel like? And then I would move it back. What did I feel like right before that feeling, so I could try to head it off in the past or report it if it ever happened again? Those were the things that I did because I felt very proactive, not doing anything about the previous one, but in about preparing for the next one. As far as how it's handled correctly, sincerely, there is an element of trial and error. People are often surprised when we all get together and talk about the things that we do to help stave off anxiety or panic attacks. People say, oh, well, whenever I'm having a lot of anxiety, I go out in public and just talk to everybody I can find. And there's always a group of people who are like, wait, what? You go out in public and talk to as many people as you can find when you're anxious? That is what I do. But that's very counterintuitive to many people with anxiety. But it works for me. And I'm only trying to make coping mechanisms for me. So again, I wish I had a more concrete answer, do this or this will work, or here's what the research says. But unfortunately, I do not. However, trial and error is a very powerful thing. So many people believe that they can't try something and see if it works. You absolutely can try something. Try it. If it works, do it again. If it doesn't work, try something else. Trial and error is an absolutely respectable skill to learn. It's how we get vaccines. It's how we get medical breakthroughs. I didn't invent trial and error. Now, I know that the scientists and doctors call it research, but you and we know that it's just trial and error. I love it when you pop my book on the screen. Look, you can get it at my website.
Gotta have the book. Gotta get the book. If you want to actually get the real insight, get the book.
The book is awesome. Yay. And it's so big.
Gabe's book. And they're signed, right?
Yeah, I sign them and I include swag. I mean, how can you?
It's very cool. I mean,
everybody
swag.
Gabe swag. Swag.
I want awesome. Swag's great. Wonderful. Well, yeah, trial and error. I feel like the world is trial and error. I mean, you got to try. You got to like go through and realize that some stuff will work and some stuff won't, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a solution. So I think you handled that one very well. We have generalized anxiety question from Martin. What would you advise on how to cope with generalized anxiety, which makes sharing your hobbies and interests with others difficult, especially on social media? Ooh.
So there's this research study that said that I forget the exact number, but it was a very, very high number. It was in the 90s, and it said that 90+% of the things that we worry about never happen. That the things that end up causing us the most trouble are the blindsided things, the things that we didn't think about, didn't plan for. It wasn't even on our radar. We were sitting there minding our own business, and wham, just happened. And I think about that a lot when I think about, I don't know if I want to share this, or I don't know if I want to tell people this. And I realize that study, and I also realize that I'm psyching myself out because most people just won't care. I know that's kind of a hard thing to hear, but most people just don't care what we do because they're busy with their own lives. And I find that very comforting because it just means that they're not interested, so they move along. Another group of people will be mildly interested. They'll be like, oh, well, that's kind of neat. And then another group of people will be interested, and they'll ask questions and they'll ask follow-ups, and they'll want to be involved somehow. And then there's the tiny, tiny, tiny percentage that stops us from living our best lives. And that's the group that isn't interested in what we're doing and decides to tell us about it for some reason that we all can't even possibly comprehend. But here's the thing. That's the worst case scenario. You get somebody that says they don't like what you are doing. So I know that that's kind of a cavalier attitude. I do get upset when people, call my speeches dumb or insult my book or tell me that my dog is ugly. I'm not saying that doesn't hurt me. I am a human, but it takes the focus off of all the people who do care what I'm doing. And that's where I try to aim my focus. The people who don't care, I don't know who they are because they haven't presented themselves. The people who do care in any way, I focus on them because we're interacting, we're challenging each other, we're having a conversation, we're sharing our likes, dislikes, loves, and hobbies. And then that small little group that may or may not even exist, just ignore them. They aren't part of what you're doing, and frankly, they don't have anything else going on because they're talking to you about something that they don't even like. It's a little bit like showing up at a buffet and having your plate, and instead of going and putting all the foods that you like on it, you go to all the foods that you hate and yell at it. I don't like you, salad. It's like you could spend your time eating potatoes, and maybe there's like a turkey carver. I don't know. So when I tend to think about people that way, I kind of find them a little bit funny, and they're easier to ignore. And when I focus on the people that are interested or the foods that I do like, well, my belly gets full or my heart gets full. Sincerely, when I was nervous about becoming a mental health advocate, I had all of these ideas in my head. I was going to give a speech and people were going to throw stuff at me. I was going to get spit on. I was going to get yelled at. I was going to get, I just, the things that went through my head. I'm not saying that I have never received any negative email or negative feedback or had somebody yell at me, because it's absolutely happened. But I got to tell you, it hasn't been anywhere near as bad as I thought, or as bad as I had in my head. And I'm so glad that I did it, because for every negative, there's 100 positives. And I would have lost those 100 positives if I let that negative scare me. So take a leap of faith, put it out there, and the people who don't like it, just ignore them. Just move right along. Thank them for their feedback and don't spend any time on them. Build your tribe with the things that you love. Put the things that you love out in the world. You will inspire yourself and so many others, and it will allow you to find like-minded people that you can share your hobbies with. But just take a deep breath and do it. And the first time is always rough. It is anxiety-provoking to put yourself out there for the first time. Know that that is normal and understandable, and don't beat yourself up for being nervous or even panicked or having an anxiety attack. It's a hard thing to do, but when you get through it, pat yourself on the back that you did it anyway. Thank you so much for that question.
Thank you so much. And yeah, the only way that you can find people in your tribe, like to find who connects and such, is to share your hobbies and to see who connects. And for the most part, people will do their own thing, but it's kind of good to find your tribe. So share with your current tribe and find even more tribe, because tribe.
Yeah, tribe is awesome.
Tribe is good. So we do have, we've got a few more questions here. One that is particular that I think we should go to now, kind of a really heavy question from Chloe. Their boyfriend's son's father, so their boyfriend has a son from another relationship. That father died by suicide 3 days ago, and Chloe wants to know, how do you go about coping with this while taking care of an infant? Everyone is messaging me, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. And also, they're bipolar and just worried about their self and their son in the sense of healing.
It is. First off, I am extraordinarily sorry for your loss. Yeah. It's an extremely difficult time, and I completely understand that. Here's the thing about grief and about death. We don't do a good job as a society of handling it. Sometimes we do nothing, which is often the wrong answer. And sometimes we do too much, which is often the wrong answer. So the first thing, of course, is that know that this is coming from a place of, generally speaking, it's coming from a place of goodness. They're trying to help. They're trying to understand. They're trying to handle their own fears and their own curiosity, their own everything. There's just so much wrapped up in a moment like this that it tends to bring out the best, the worst, the confused, the fearful. the critical, the kind. It's a difficult situation for every single person involved. When it comes to what you need, that's a boundary. If somebody reaches out to you, you can ignore them. That is your right. You are not required to answer people, especially in your time of need. And if they don't understand that, that's okay. Let them not understand it. In a week, in 2 weeks, in a month, you can explain to them, look, I was in no position to reach out to you, and I'm very sorry, but I was just not emotionally or mentally able to reach out to you. If you are able to say anything, able to send a message back that says, I'm okay, but I can't talk right now. I'll contact you when I'm ready. That is also a very powerful thing to set that boundary, because then if they keep emailing or calling or whatever, you've told them once, you've done your part. It's important to remember that this is a reeling moment. Nobody knows what to do. There's no guidebook for this. And this allows people to just do things. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong. It's important to understand that it is probably not malicious. It's just random. Now, that said, just because something is random doesn't mean that it's not painful for you, and I absolutely understand that. So know that you are empowered. You don't owe anybody a return phone call. You don't owe anybody a return text. You don't owe anybody anything. You take all the time that you need and focus on yourself, because you are the most important. If you're able to set that boundary and tell people, no, you'll catch up with them in a few days, weeks, or months, that's great. If you're not, just ignore them. It's not selfish to put yourself first. It's just self-care.
Yes. No, that was beautiful, Gabe. I think that was really well done. So it's hard. There isn't really a way that society has prepped us to deal with that and actually provide the support. We also want to make sure that people know if you or a loved one are going through a tough time or need support right now, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255, or text home if you prefer to text home to 741-741. Those resources are there. Obviously, those are just resources, but having the support of going through something just in that way, it sucks and it's rough, and no one's going to really understand fully how to best process it. So just send in love your way.
Yes, agreed.
Wonderful. All right. I'm going to go to a slightly just a different question about bipolar and medication. I know we get this question a lot for you, but I think it's always good to reiterate and answer. So Kathleen wants to talk about what are the different treatments, or if there are any other treatments for bipolar that are not pharmaceutical. They are asking for bipolar. Maybe if you can talk about the needs for bipolar, what, obviously everyone is different, but what your treatment kind of journey looked like.
So for me, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was committed to a psychiatric hospital, and I was put on psychiatric medications, and that helped me tremendously. I really responded well, and it took, this was my emotional range before, obviously godlike mania all the way down to, suicidal depression. I was garbage. And the medication did a really good job of, shortening that to a manageable emotional range for me. It also helped with things like hypersexuality, grandiosity. It got rid of the demons. The psychosis was intense. And it really, really, really helped me dramatically. Now, I had side effects, and it took 4 years to get the right medication going and to get everything, squared away. But I responded very, very well to it. So that's full disclosure that of course is my story. Here's the thing. Medication is important. I absolutely believe it's important. Research shows that it's important, but it's not the only thing. And I hate that we have phrases like, oh, well, if people with bipolar disorder would just be med compliant, they'd be fine. Well, for one thing, you have to be med compliant on the correct medications. and that we can't determine the correct medications. We're not doctors. So I really love how even if we're med compliant and we don't turn out well, it's our fault. We didn't decide our treatment plan, but it's still our fault. So working with our doctors to get the right medication is obviously very, very important. But it's also not the only thing. And I hate that it's always, always, always offered as the only thing. Take your meds and you'll be fine. That's nonsense. There's also diet and exercise. There's sleep. There's coping skills. There's therapy. There's peer support. There's support groups. There's, my God, there's just so many things. There's having a buddy. There's having things that bring you joy. There's being in stable, housing, and there's just so much to managing this illness, but yet all anybody wants to talk about medication. I'm not saying that medication is not important. I'm just saying it's not the end all be all. So when people ask me what all do you need to treat bipolar disorder and all anybody wants to talk about is medication, I think, wow, this is a bit like wanting to build a house and all you want to talk about are the walls and the roof. At some point, you're going to realize that you have no plumbing or electric. You have no furnace. Really good job on being, wall and roof compliant, though, I guess. But you missed a lot of the other pieces. It's a lot. Bipolar disorder is a vicious disease, and I know from personal experience and from the research and what I've seen that it takes a lot more than some. Do this one thing and you'll be fine. And I think that we as people who are living with bipolar disorder need to keep that in mind. There's no quick fix here. This is a very serious illness, and we need a team of people. And one of the people on that team has to be us. One of it has to be a doctor and a therapist and a support group and friends. And I list my house and my dog on my support team because having a stable place to live and a puppy is nice. So it's important to keep all of that in perspective. Thank you so much. We have time for one more question.
Yes.
You got the doozy?
I think I have a very nice light question to end us off. That's pretty similar to kind of what we were going with. So our last question, also, we've got some very sweet comments I just want to highlight. Sorry if we haven't gotten to every single question, but Santiago, we just want to say thank you so much. Very sweet comment here. Santiago comes to a lot of our lives. They're fantastic. Just kind of saying wonderful job and just that they're loving having the support. We're so thankful for you, Santiago. You are a fantastic member of the Mighty community, and we are just so appreciative that
I play the drums. I play the drums too.
Very cool.
We're the same. Sorry, Flight of Ideas.
Oh my goodness. Yes, see, there we go. We can find connection. And actually, in that time that I was saying that, we have a really great question. The last question to come in, this is the question I think that we should answer last, will be, how do you deal with an unsupportive family member when it comes to mental health? Therapists always talk about having community and support groups, like you were talking about, the importance of your support team and network, but it is hard when you don't have anyone, when no one cares. So what do you do when you don't have the people in your life are not supportive about your mental health or your journey? What do you do in those circumstances?
These are always really, really difficult questions to answer because my knee-jerk reaction is, well, you got to cut toxic people off. Like I can hear myself saying it. Oh, well, just cut them off. But come on, nobody wants to cut off their family. They're part of where we came from. They, for better or for worse, they made us who we are. They're a direct link to our past and our childhood. And yeah, we can't get rid of them, right? But we can set boundaries with them. I come from a family that for some reason just can't seem to agree on much. And we can't agree on religion and we can't agree on politics. And those are two things that just start a lot of fights. I will give them full credit. They are excellent with my mental health and my bipolar disorder, extraordinarily supportive. Big shout out to them. I love them so very, very much. But when it comes to those other topics, yeah, we don't do well. So what we decided is just we're not talking about it. Like that's not coming up. We're not going to discuss politics and we're not going to discuss religion. We set a boundary that subject is closed for us because we're not ruining Thanksgiving over, some governor that we don't like somewhere or a senator who said something that half of the room finds. This isn't the way to connect. We focus on what we have in common and we move toward that. We focus on playing cards or eating turkey or watching Home Alone. That is what we have to try to set up with our family when they're not supportive with mental health. We need to find the things that we like about them. Maybe mom says snarky things about your pills, but she bakes very, very well. So just ask your mom not to comment on your pills. Ask her not to comment on anything. Ask her to drop it. If she brings it up, ignore it. Don't take the bait and focus on mom's apple pie. Focus on playing cards. Focus on all of the things that you truly do love about your mom. And, mom can be grandma, grandpa, sister, cousin, aunt, uncle, etc. It doesn't have to be, it's just whomever it is. Just put up that boundary and don't talk about it. Now, I know that's easier said than done. Sometimes people feel that they need to comment on it, and that's when it's up to us to be the bigger person and just ignore them. Set an example, model the way. When they say something about your mental health that you don't like, ignore it. It's hard not to take the bait, but it is a skill that we can in fact learn. Finally, then we have to build our own support group, right? And that's hard. My first support group I built in person. It was a group called Bipolar Bears. I believe it was every Wednesday, and I went to that support group, and that became my little community. Later on, I had a little community online. Believe it or not, if memory serves, and I can't guarantee that it does, it was on MySpace, and there was also forums that I used. Out there where I just found people with bipolar disorder that I could ask questions to, and I read articles. And listen, my support group is much better now, with my best friend and my wife. But in the very, very early days, I had family who was confused and scared, but trying, and they were 600 miles away. I had just gotten divorced, so I was single and all alone. And my support group was this group of people in a church basement. Was it the best support group in the world? No, but it was more than nothing. And I think that's what we have to focus on is building up that support group, even if it's not the ideal support group, until such time we get it. So step one, setting that hard boundary with your family that this topic is off limits. You're not going to discuss it. They are hurting you personally by bringing this up and not being supportive. So we're going to focus on the things that we love about each other and that we have in common and that we don't fight about. Step number 2 is to cobble together any support group that you can, whether it's online, whether it's on the Mighty, whether it's reading blogs, whether it's the local mental health support group, in the aforementioned church basement, and then just slowly move forward in that direction. Listen, this is a journey. It's not a marathon. It's not a destination. It takes a lot of time. The number one thing that I dislike about my job is, I talk to people and, when I tell my story, it acts like it's so quick, right? Gabe got diagnosed and then he reached recovery. And I say, well, it's 4 years, but it doesn't, 4 years is a long time. It's a very, very long time. And it comes across so quick in a blog or in a podcast or doing something like this. But know that it took a very, very long time and it was very hard and there were setbacks. But I say all this because I know that you can do it. You are just as strong as I am. You are just as capable as I am, and we can do it together. And I want you to know that I believe in you, and that even though it takes a long time, there's lots of stuff that takes a long time, and it's worth it when you get there. And I do believe that you can. Thank you so much for that question. Camera, we did it again.
Yes, this has been a successful, fun live with you all, and we really appreciate everyone joining. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question. I see a few more coming in. Let us know. Come back in 2 weeks. Come back in bi-weekly, the week after next week, which is, it's in June at some point. It's not the 1st. It's the 8th, I believe. June 8th will be the next. I think I'm right. I believe I'm right with that. But yeah, come back and ask her questions, and we'll also take a look at these questions and put them into the doc for the next live. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing, and stay tuned for our next event. Have a wonderful day. Stay mighty. Bye.
Yay!